And we have more conversation for you. Again, it's Adrienne Lawrence. And this time I have the executive director of United for Iran, Fیروزه Mahmoudi. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Adrienne.
Yes, so I know that Iran and the conversations that are going around there and the protests, they are making headlines and waves right now. Can you tell us a little bit about what is going on?
Of course. As you know, the protest started with the killing of Amini, a young Kurdish woman who was visiting family in Tehran, and the morality police arrested her. And while in custody, she was her skull was crushed multiple times. She was beaten, and then once she got out, quickly after she died. And that was a sparkle that started the current first protests, now movement and an uprising. And we are seeing for the first time to this extent women leading the charge, young women and young men, but women mostly, and unifying, galvanizing the country in a way we haven't seen. And although the Islamic Republic does what it can to pivot different groups against each other, the protesters have been incredible with their message of solidarity and support and backing of each other from city to city to make it very clear that they are one group fighting for the same cause.
Yes, and what would you say if you were able to summarize what that cause is? As I've heard a lot of talk about these morality type police out there, people feeling limited in terms of maybe if it's wearing a hijab or what they're doing, what would you say people are pushing for?
Though this started because of the morality police and the woman having to cover, the cause is much bigger than that. The hijab that women have to wear is just a symbol of oppression. It's a much bigger thing. It's about body autonomy. It's about basic rights. It's about gender rights. It's about anti-discrimination. It's about secular democracy. It's about a new future where everyone can lead the lives they want and have their basic rights honored.
Yes, and have it respected, most certainly. I really get the sense that in Iran, people don't want to go back necessarily. And it's more of progressing and going forward and staying the course, staying the path. And so would you say that that is definitely what the sentiment is in terms of those who are taking to the streets and uplifting their voices right now?
Absolutely. One of the chants that I saw today for the first time was, "Your bullets are few, we are many." People are putting their lives on the line, and they are clear. They're looking at the camera. We have videos of some of the young girls that have died, and some of the messages are like, "I'm going to the street. We're going to do this." And they know what they're doing. They're not mincing words. We don't see fear in their faces. They are so brave. And what they're advocating for is a new Iran, an Iran where they can have their rights honored, absolutely. And in a way, the genie's out of the bottle. I'm not sure what the future exactly looks like. We can talk about that. And there's no going back in a way, because they have shed their hijab in a way we've never seen before. So many of them throughout the country, in every city, in cities that we haven't seen protests in before. And they're dancing in the streets, they're burning their hijab, they're climbing on top of cars and, waving their fists and advocating for change. And the government of Iran is already had its back to the wall. I saw a comic, a political cartoon that was very telling. It's no longer back to a wall, it's to the edge of a cliff. What they have created is a country that's based on oppression, based on oppressing women and forcing the hijab on them. The grandmothers of these young women that were in the streets during the revolution advocating for demanding that the hijab would not start were the bellwethers of this situation. They're like, hey, if they put the hijab on us, this is not just about a piece of fabric. They are able to effectively control half of the population. And if once that's normalized, it becomes normal in the rest of the country for everyone else. So when we have had this for 40 plus years, and now, and this is the identity of the regime, right? So oppressing people and using theocracy and killing their own kids, and not only kids, grandkids and great grandkids. These are men in their 80s and even 90s killing folks. We call them Daheya Hashtad. They're born in the 80s, and it's currently year 1401 in Iran. So 70s and 80s. These kids are teenager, then in their 20s, older folks too, of course. And that's where they're at. So absolutely, I don't think that there's really a going back, because they've tied their identity to the demands to oppression, and the demands are so clear that we will not stand for this oppressive regime anymore, that the amount of change that is required will no longer allow this regime to be as is.
That's very, very powerful. And I know you spoke of the grandmothers in the past, and I'm sure there have been uprisings before, but what's different about the response this time from the Iranians?
Each one has its own flavor, of course. This was a very organic movement. We're not surprised, but it just came about, right? There was a sparkle with Gina that led to this fire. And it is throughout the country, in smaller cities we've never seen. It's bold in a way we haven't seen. We're seeing teenagers literally taking their scarf off, walking up to the police and saying, "Don't you dare touch me," and just standing there strong. People have done this before, but to this extent and this caliber, where they're not showing fear, and if anything, you see the hesitation in the eyes and the bodies of the other side.
Wow. And so what are you hearing on the ground from friends, family? What are people saying?
The number of folks being arrested is a lot more than we may think, and we don't have the complete numbers, but we know more than 50 people have been killed, and more than 1,000 people have been arrested already. And a number of people without hijab is definitely also more than we're seeing in the media. As we know, the government's doing whatever it can to shut not only the protests, but shut out the rest of the world, so they can do what they do best, which is persecute the people with impunity. So with the internet off and on being shut down, it's hard to get all the information, but it's really important to remember that what we're seeing is only a fraction of what's happening, and that we need to continue talking about this, that they're not going away, and we need to be their voice and not forget them. I remember in the 2009 uprising, this Iran's uprising was on the media all around the world until the day Michael Jackson died, and then immediately stopped and moved to something else. So we have to make sure that we keep them not only in our hearts and minds, but as part of the public discourse.
Absolutely, without a doubt, keeping that pressure on with that accountability of having the world see. I know that can be something that is significant in terms of getting leadership to get right. And when it comes to the regime there, how do you think they're going to respond in the event that media coverage continues? Do you think it's going to take them some time before they realize they need to back down? Do you think what they're going to do is going to be just something superficial to placate people in the moment? What will happen?
A good question. What they usually do is shut down the internet, and they once the internet shut down, they're as violent as they can be. Right? They will. There are already 1,000 people, over 1,000 go in prison. They torture, they threaten, they do whatever they can to instill fear. And that's the only tool really that's left for them. And this time, they're definitely at a crossroads, so they can continue doing that. And fear is no longer working. The people on the streets are fearless, so that's a really difficult position that they have put themselves in. On the other hand, like I said, if they let go and kind of give in to no hijab, then the whole identity dismantles. So there is that too. I think it's really critical also to remember for all of us advocating from outside, be it government officials, prominent people, whoever is talking about this, that this is a homegrown movement, and those inside Iran are leading it. Those young individuals and are leading it, and that what we need to do is create space for them to do what they want to do and take the level of risk they want to take and stay in the streets, and not in any way influence or try to influence and dictate how things should go or who should lead this movement from the outside.
Yes, absolutely. Allowing those who are advocates, protesters, uplifters, and resistors, and who've been leading the movement and lead the way in the conversation is critical. And so if people want to support, other than ensuring that it continues to get media coverage, is there anything else people can do from afar in order to lift up the cause?
I think it's really critical to stay informed, follow the leaders, who stay up to date on what's happening, be part of the discourse, pressure one's government to act unilaterally, bilaterally, multilaterally, to pressure Iran to do what we can. Those of us outside that have the abilities and are in the tech world, doing what we can to make sure that access stays open as well, with technologies as well as satellites and internet overall.
Yes, that is an incredibly important thing, and something I think that we all can get behind, because we know that transparency is key, especially when we're seeing a lot of dictator type governments popping up, and even the United States being possibly under the thumb of one making that attempt. All right, so thank you so much for all of your insight. If people want to get involved in supporting United for Iran, what can they do?
They can go to our site and sign up. Our website's unitedforiran.org and find out more. And I want to end by saying that we truly are not liberated till all of us are liberated, and we are not liberated till women are liberated. This is all one cause, and we all need to be part of the struggle.
Absolutely, I completely and totally support that. And I'm also very grateful to have you, Fairuza Mahmoudi, Executive Director, United for Iran. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Adrian.